Hello gardener, welcome to my channel. If you're new here, my channel is all about growing your own food no matter your space or skill level. Today I'm sharing my top 10 easiest vegetables to grow for first-time gardeners. These crops are perfect for beginner gardeners to learn basic gardening skills that can be applied later on to some of the more difficult crops. If you're new here, hello and welcome. My name is Jara. I've been gardening all of my life and I'm a professional seed and plant nursery. I love to share my knowledge and teach others how to garden and grow food, so you've come to the right place if you want to improve your gardening skills. This guide focuses on vegetable crops that are best grown during the spring or fall. I also have seeds and plants for many of these crops, specifically the cultivars that I have had the most success with on my website. And I probably have a YouTube video tutorial showing you how to grow all of these vegetable ideas from seed to harvest. So if one exists, I'll just link all of that stuff below in the description so you can easily find them. Let's start off with some leafy greens. By far the most popular of them all is lettuce. It is so easy to grow. Just direct sow some seeds and in about 30 to 45 days, depending on the variety, you'll start harvesting leaves. There is no need to start seeds in containers indoors. Just simply direct sow the seeds outside into some soil in the spring or fall time. Lettuce doesn't take up much space either, so it's a great choice to plant in containers, grow bags, or even green stock garden towers. Plus, who doesn't love fresh salad straight from the garden? The easiest type of lettuce to grow are the loose leaf types like black-seeded Simpson and oak leaf, because you don't have to wait for the plant to produce a harvestable head of iceberg lettuce or romaine, for example. You can just harvest individual leaves as needed. Whenever a crop produces a head, like a head of broccoli or cabbage, it takes much longer because you have to wait for that head to form. This means longer time sitting in your garden, which means more opportunities for something to go wrong, like a pest or disease problem. Diagnosing and treating pests and diseases is a whole skill set on its own, so my focus with this list are easy crops that are quick to mature to try and help you avoid a lot of those issues for now. My next leafy green recommendation is arugula because it has barely any pest or disease issues. For the most part, pests don't like bitter tasting vegetables like arugula and mustard greens, making these crops easier to grow than other greens like kale, which attracts a ton of different pests. Plus, if you're growing lettuce for salads, arugula complements it very well to add a contrast in flavors. It is fast growing, I would say even faster than lettuce. I just direct sow the seeds over the soil surface of my garden or in containers. You should be able to harvest small, tender, baby, leafy arugula greens in less than 30 days. The baby greens have better flavor too. Just cut them all back and in a few weeks it will regrow so you can harvest them again. There are not many varieties of arugula to choose from. Literally, there is the standard green arugula and a wild arugula. The difference is wild arugula is a tougher plant and has stronger flavor. Let's move on to some root crops. If you're looking for fast results, radishes are the way to go. They're ready to harvest in as little as 30 days. Plus, they're great for teaching kids about gardening since they grow so fast. They have similar growth habits and requirements to other root crops like beets and turnips. So if you can get the hang of growing radishes, then you can move on to those crops. I like to make a small hilled up row of soil and direct sow seeds spaced 2 inches apart. Radishes are a great quick crop option to plant underneath other bigger crops while you're waiting for them to grow in. So you can really maximize your growing space by growing radishes. Next we have carrots. Carrots are easy as long as your soil is loose and free of rocks, so the carrot roots can grow nice and straight. They take a little longer than radishes, but the payoff is worth it when you pull out those bright, colorful roots. I like to make some shallow trenches in a straight line and then sprinkle in the seeds. The biggest mistake made when growing carrots is not keeping the soil moist to help break down the exterior part of the seed so it can germinate. If you can check on them every day and make sure the soil is moist, then it's easy from there on out. The best carrot variety to grow for just about every type of soil is Danvers carrots, so start with that one first until you get the hang of growing carrots. Now let's discuss some bean and pea options. Both of these crops grow fast and you can usually start harvesting in about 2 months after direct sowing the seeds. Everyone loves green beans and kids love searching and harvesting the pods. They also don't have many pest issues, but critters like rabbits and deer do love to munch on bean plants, so make sure you protect them. There are two types of beans: bush beans, which are compact and better suited for smaller growing spaces, and pole or vining beans, which require a trellis to grow on. I recommend a bush bean variety called Blue Lake because it's a very easy standard green bean if you're limited on space. I like rattlesnake pole beans as a vining option because not only do they have unique looking green pods with purple streaks, but they tolerate a wide range of climates, so it's a good choice for just about everyone. If you have the space, definitely grow a vining bean because they produce a lot more than the bush beans. Beans grow best in warm weather, so I switched to growing peas during the cooler parts of the year. There are a few different types of peas. You have sweet shelling peas where you remove the individual peas out of the pod. Then you have snow peas and sugar snap peas where the entire pod is edible, so you don't have to waste time shelling. Both snow peas and sugar snap peas are the easiest to grow. I barely ever have a disease or pest problem when growing peas. The only thing is they do do require a trellis to grow up upon for the best harvest. And if you don't have any vertical garden trellises, don't worry. I have a whole tutorial showing you how I set up mine at home. It's super easy, doesn't take a lot of time, doesn't require lots of supplies or even a lot of tools. It's a great way for a beginner gardener to get started with some vertical gardening. I'll link that video below. Let's move on to onions. If you're an onion lover, you're in for a treat because homegrown onions pack flavor that is far more intense and delicious than the store-bought ones. While growing large onion bulbs does require a bit of technique and practice, green onions are an excellent beginner-friendly alternative. You can direct sow green onion seeds, but an even simpler method is to repurpose the white bulb ends from store-bought green onions. Just plant them in soil, and within 3 to 4 weeks, they'll start growing fresh new leaves. And an added bonus is that plants in the allium family, like onions, chives, and garlic, naturally deter many pests and critters with their strong scent. I love to plant green onion scraps throughout my garden, especially between veggie crops to help keep pests at bay while getting a steady supply of fresh greens. No garden is complete without some herbs. Herbs are easier to grow than veggie crops, so it's a nice and easy introduction to gardening for everyone. Plus, you get the most bang for your buck by growing your own herbs, since fresh herbs are so expensive at the grocery store. The number one easiest herb to grow for beginner gardeners is basil. It's a fast-growing, low-maintenance plant that thrives in both garden beds and containers, making it perfect for any space. Basil loves warm weather and sunshine, and with just regular watering and a spot with good light, it will flourish. Plus, basil is a cut and come again herb, meaning you can harvest leaves throughout the season, and the plant will keep producing more. It's incredibly versatile in the kitchen, adding fresh flavor to salads, pasta, and homemade pesto. Basil is pretty easy to grow from seed, but kind of similar to how I grow green onions from scraps. You can grow basil from leftover stem pieces if you bought a pack of fresh basil from the store. Look for a thick stem piece that has at least 3 leaf nodes on it. Dip the end of the cutting in some hormone rooting powder and plant it in a small container with soil. Keep it watered and put it in a shady spot until you see new growth. And voila, you have a whole basil plant faster than starting it from seed. My last category of crops includes fruiting vegetables. Fruiting vegetables are plants that produce edible fruits, which develop from the flower of the plant. This includes things like zucchini, eggplant, and peppers. I left this category for last because out of all my recommendations, it's the most challenging, but I have some specific cultivars that are very easy for beginners, and I'll explain why. My first suggestion are cherry tomatoes. Tomatoes are probably one of the most difficult crops to grow because they have a lot of pest and disease issues. I recommend the larger sized tomatoes like beefsteaks for more advanced gardeners. Despite all of that, tomatoes are my favorite thing to grow because of the wide variety, flavors, and all the uses in the kitchen. Growing cherry tomatoes is way easier as the plants tend to be more vigorous, produce early and abundantly, and tolerate a lot of pests and disease pressure before actually being affected, so it's a forgiving crop. Master growing cherry tomatoes before moving on to the more difficult slicers and beefsteaks. I recommend yellow pear or Berry's Crazy Cherry as good heirloom cherry tomato varieties to start with because they produce loads of fruit. If you're gardening in an area with high disease and pest pressure, then I recommend a tough hybrid cherry tomato called Sun Gold. It is actually said to be one of the best tasting tomatoes ever, so it's a really great introductory type of option. Another option are microdwarf tomatoes. I especially like one variety called Tiny Tim. Microdwarfs grow to a mature size of about 12 inches tall and start producing fruit at around 40 days from sowing the seeds. You can also grow them in tiny spaces, 1-gallon pots, or a green stalk garden tower. Let's wrap up with my final beginner-friendly vegetable, cucumbers. While they can be affected by many of the same pests and diseases as squash and zucchini, cucumbers are much easier to grow, making them a fantastic introduction to learning how to identify and treat common garden issues. Successfully growing cucumbers builds the skills you'll need to tackle squash, arguably one of the most pest and disease-prone crops out there, right next to the tomatoes. But don't let that discourage you from growing squash. This vegetable family includes some of the most delicious options, from zucchini to pumpkins to long-lasting winter squash. Once you've mastered it, squash plants can produce an impressive amount of food per plant. Cucumbers are a great start. I recommend varieties like Bait Alpha and China Jade for beginners because they are self-pollinating, which means fewer pollination issues and much higher yields. As you grow cucumbers, keep a close eye on the plants. If you notice chewed up leaves, you're most likely dealing with worms, so just treat them with BT or spinosad. For leaf diseases such as yellowing spots or powdery mildew, a simple spray of 1 cup of hydrogen peroxide mixed with 1 gallon of water can disinfect and help stop the spread. Growing cucumbers is simple, but it does require daily observation. Catching problems early is key to preventing severe damage and keeping your plants thriving. So give cucumbers a try. They're productive, rewarding, and the perfect stepping stone to growing more challenging crops. So there you have it, guys, my top 10 easiest to grow vegetables for first-time gardeners. If you're thinking about starting your first garden, these are the perfect choices to boost your confidence and fill your plate with fresh, homegrown goodness. If you're finding it challenging looking to figure out the best timing for planting certain crops, I've got you guys covered. My seasonal seed club subscription service takes the guesswork out of gardening. I personally hand select a variety of seeds perfectly suited for the upcoming season, along with detailed instructions, giving you the guidance and confidence to grow successfully. Information about my seed club is in the description. Don't forget to hit that like button if you found this helpful and subscribe to my channel for more gardening tips and tutorials. I'd love to hear in the comments what's the first vegetable you're excited to grow. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Happy gardening.